Someone shared this video and believed that it reflects the actual situation of the 2020 US elections.
At which he won 14 gold medals.
This clip was from a movie titled The Dictator, which has been banned by the CCP. Someone replied, "It appears that the CCP knows itself quite well." On November 19th, the Trump campaign lawyers team held a press conference during which they laid out the 8 aspects of fraud that occurred in this election. However, the so-called US mainstream media remained silent. While overly emphasizing the alleged arrival of the second wave of COVID, number of cases, and deaths, someone replied, "The radical left has been manipulating and taking advantage of such a broken card time and again. It is clear that it has exhausted all the tactics it has." Someone replied, "The so-called investigative reporters of US mainstream media disappeared when it comes to election fraud. CNN, which once reported on issues of the Dominion voting system, and the New York Times, which reported on the fraud of mail-in ballots, both turned a blind eye to data irregularities and the ironic Biden curve, as well as statements about voter fraud from the chairman of the Federal Election Commission, and instead argued that the 2020 election was the safest and most transparent in history." Someone replied, "These media have been saying for the past 4 years that Russia interfered in the 2016 US elections. But now they are telling the American people that it is absolutely impossible for US elections to be rigged." Someone with a legal background replied, "A group of American lawyers with the same background as mine was shocked by the massive fraud in this year's US election. They have never seen a political party in a democratic country adopt corrupt methods to destroy America's democratic system and rule of law in such a large-scale, systematic way." Someone replied, "A good system is effective only for people that possess basic social ethics. If justice cannot prevail in the US this time, America may become the second Venezuela." Someone shared this video clip which shows an interview that the governor of South Dakota recently did, during which she talked about election fraud.
"We live in a republic. We are a government that gets its power from the consent of the governed. That is the people. They give their consent on Election Day. Election Day needs to be fair, honest, and transparent. And we need to be sure that we had an honest election before we decide who gets to be in the White House the next 4 years.
Governor Noem, do you have any evidence that it wasn't an honest election? You had a tweet earlier this week saying it was rigged. Do you have any evidence at all of widespread fraud? I've spoken with Republican secretaries of state in Georgia, in Arizona. I've spoken to Republican officials across the country. They have come up with zero evidence of widespread fraud.
And that is not true. That is absolutely not true. People have signed legal documents, affidavits stating that they saw illegal activities. And that is why we need to have this conversation in court. The New York Times itself said that there were clerical errors. If you look at what happened in Michigan,
fraud, Governor, that's
that
very
we had
different.
computer glitches that changed Republican votes to Democrat votes. You look in Pennsylvania, dead people voted in Pennsylvania. So, George, I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know if it'll change the outcome of the election. But why is everybody so scared just to have a fair election and find out? We gave Al Gore 37 days to run the process before we decided who was going to be president. Why would we not afford the 70.6 million Americans that voted for President Trump the same consideration?
In fact, many Americans are aware of the threat that communism poses.
It seems like communism is spreading in America faster than this virus is. To stop this spread, we've seen a lot of other nations fall to the tyranny of communism, like Russia and China, other Southeast Asian countries, Central American countries, even Venezuela. We have to realize we cannot let that happen here in America, because our fall will be much worse than all those other countries. And as goes this nation, so goes the world.
I'm here because I have children, and I believe that we need to stand up to or for this country. This is the birthplace of our democracy.
Someone shared this picture to illustrate what Trump is actually doing. Someone said the deep state will seek to eliminate all those that dare to fight against it. Trump is acting according to the divine's will and arrangements. He will surely succeed. I hope that all Trump supporters who believe in God could pray for him. Someone shared in the CCP's brainwashing education, looking back at all the so-called young heroes and models it propagated in textbooks. Whether it was Liu Hulan, a young female spy during the Chinese Civil War, Dong Chunrui, a PLA soldier who blew himself up to destroy a Kuomintang bunker, or Qiu Shaoyun, a young soldier who chose to burn himself to death during the Korean War. Every story sought to teach children how to die for the so-called collective sense of honor. I feel horrified when thinking more about it. In the eyes of the CCP, a terrorist organization, even children will also need to devote their lives. Someone replied, the so-called little hero Wang Erxiao, who allegedly sacrificed his life to protect fellow villagers and communist troops from Japanese invaders, was only 13 years old at the time of death. Indeed, only terrorist organizations dare to brainwash children in such a way. Someone shared, it was said that North Korea also reported on the Make America Great Again rally in D.C. The article described the event as follows. Participants sang the North Korean national anthem to express their demands. They rebuked Trump's dictatorship and praised Kim Jong-un's wisdom. According to polls, 80% of Americans yearn for a happy life that North Koreans lead and resent the capitalist society where Americans can hardly survive. In fact, the CCP is not much more honest than North Korea. In a 2015 Chinese film called Cairo Declaration, Mao Zedong instead of Chiang Kai-shek was put at the center of the World War II discussions with US President Roosevelt and British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, even though he did not come to power until 1949. Someone balked by sharing this picture. Churchill and others were very surprised that Mao suddenly replaced Chiang. They asked Mao, we heard you were behind the enemy. How come you came to the front line? Mao Zedong replied, President Chiang went to the bathroom.
Child, we will take you in. Child, we